Who would have ever thought that you would have Dr. Seuss and Mr. Potato Head being canceled? What's up, my friends? I pray you guys are blessed in the Lord. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch this video. So today in this video, I want to talk about Mr. Potato Head and Dr. Seuss. Now, I mean, I was shocked just like you guys that it's gotten so ridiculous in the cancel culture today that we are discussing one of the most beloved children's author and one of the most favorable, right, toy that I'm sure you probably had growing up, as I did, Mr. Potato Head, and now he's going through kind of like his own sex change, if you will. He's going through this gender neutrality, because we have to make sure that we're not offending kids by, with these gender binary stuff. I mean, this is what we're going through, you guys, in today's society. And I want to bring up one quick thing about my book, Challenging Conversations, because even though I address a lot of these things in greater detail than what I could be able to pack into this short little video, but this book itself has been canceled from different outlets as well because of the topics that we discuss. We bring a biblical worldview to a lot of these moral issues like abortion, racism, and transgenderism, and homosexuality, and same-sex marriage. And they deem that to be offensive because they don't want the truth to come out. Now, cancel culture is inciting that Dr. Seuss's books, now there's 6 in particular right now, are no longer to be published because they depict these racial images that are laced throughout his books. Now, this isn't necessarily something new. This has been going on for quite some time, that people have been exposing some of these things and some of the cartoon things that he did outside of his books depicting Orientals and African-American people in a very derogatory way. But this is what cancel culture does, because they're the ones that are in charge, and they're the ones that says, in order to purify our society and to give better opportunity for our children down the road, we need to eliminate these dangerous men and women. Now, one of the things that in discussing Dr. Seuss that I haven't really seen a lot of people discuss, and this is what I want to inform you guys to help you stand strong in your faith, is how did this all come out to where we're now where we are? The removing, the enterprise of Dr. Seuss is now removing 6 of these books. Now, some of these books that they're removing are not as famous as, books like this one, Oh, the Places You'll Go, or Cat in the Hat. And of course, if I have a Dr. Seuss book, or if you have a Dr. Seuss book, or several of the books, and you've been reading these to your children, I guess based according to cancel culture that we're all racist, that we've been teaching our children to be racist. I mean, this is ridiculous, you guys. But one of the things that people have not been talking about is how this all came about. As I mentioned, there have been reports, there have been people who've been saying this, or there have been people who've been removing some of Dr. Seuss's stuff. But why now? Well, because news came out based on this educational initiative called Read Across America. You're thinking, well, why is this important? It's important because it's funded and operated, you guys, by the National Education Association. Now, the NEA is the largest teachers union in America. And guess what? In this initiative, Read Across America, they're the ones that said Dr. Seuss is a racist. This is propaganda. There's racial bias here. We got to remove his stuff. We don't want kids to be taught this kind of stuff. But meanwhile, the same organization, NEA, supports LGBT special rights. They support abortion. They support a borderless society. They are a major outlet in advancing sexual rights for students, you guys. They help students who get pregnant to go have an abortion without the parents' consent to have an abortion, to get their approval. Oh, and I almost forgot that these same delegates that represent the NEA, guys, guess what? They also promote and advocate drag queen story hours for kids. Okay, so these same people that are advancing this type of ideology about sexuality, abortion, etc., are saying Dr. Seuss is dangerous. We got to remove it. We're doing a huge favor for our society. But meanwhile, hey, get your kids plugged into these drag queen story hours. This is ridiculous. CBN News reported in 2019, mind you guys, that the NEA partnered with the Human Rights Campaign. So here you have the largest union in America. And then you have the largest, which is the Human Rights Campaign, the largest LGBTQ plus advocacy group and lobbying group in Washington, D.C. You put these two together, they're exposing children now to an array of LGBTQ themed books. So let's remove Dr. Seuss, but let's not remove anything else that's promoting children how to masturbate, teaching children how to explore their sexuality, question their biological assignment, at birth, that type of thing, even challenging how their parents have been raising them. Now, when you go back to 2019, there was a research paper that was entitled "The Cat is Out of the Bag: Orientalism and Anti-Blackness and White Supremacy." So they're now pulling from this study at the same time as they're advancing all this other stuff, you guys, LGBT stuff. But they're advancing this stuff, and because they said that after the findings of this self-published research paper, they found that when you look at all of the books that Dr. Seuss has done, when you look at all of the characters that he put together, these fictional characters, it revealed that only 2% of the characters featured in Dr. Seuss's books were people of color. So right there, they're saying that right is a sign that he's a racist, just because most of his characters were not depicting African Americans. Well, I'm half Mexican, so I mean, when I looked through Dr. Seuss's books and raising my kids, in the Jimenez family, am I to be offended because I don't see a lot of supposedly Mexican characters in his books? But see, this is the outrage that they're under, but they're not outraged when you have drag queens teaching kids books, reading kids books. So what's absurd, you guys, is that critics of Dr. Seuss, they're insisting that if children continue to read Dr. Seuss's books, they're going to be influenced by the racial bias that's clearly in his books. But the problem is, you guys, there's no data that shows that to be true. Think about it. The first stuff that Dr. Seuss was writing was back in the 1930s. He was publishing things in the 1930s. So really within the last 60, 70 years of all of us, even our grandparents who have been introduced to Dr. Seuss books, where is the data that shows decades upon decades of children have become racist because of reading Dr. Seuss's books? There is no evidence. The same people who advance cancel culture are all trying to be scientific, but where's the scientific data that proves that? All of a sudden in 2021, we've become enlightened and now we realize the dangers of Dr. Seuss. Remember, in a world where cancel culture is the king or queen, or however they want to self-identify, the point is that in the world today, cancel culture says they're the conveyor of free speech. They get to determine what is considered to be tolerable free speech and what is not. They determine, you guys, free speech. And again, if you notice, the Dr. Seuss enterprise, they came out. Remember, they said that we're removing these 6 books, and I guarantee more to come, because with cancel culture, it's never enough. They got to cancel as much as they possibly can, except for themselves. But the Dr. Seuss enterprise stated that his books portray people in ways that are hurtful and wrong. See, the thing is, you guys, portray. What is that implying? That's a very ambiguous term. It's what they're saying is is that he is a racist. That's how they want it to deem. They want to expunge anything remotely that's viewed to be offensive, and they think that in the long haul that's going to benefit society, when in fact it's not. So my first response that I want to give to cancel culture is this. Cancel culture cancels itself out by its own admission. It cancels itself out by its own admission. You think, Jay, what does that mean? Well, here's the point that we have to understand, you guys, in the world today, especially as Christians who are standing strong in their faith. Cancel culture is rooted in postmodernity. What that is, it's a philosophical belief system that asserts that truth claims are individual and subjective. Now, of course, you can ask a person who's postmodern, who believes that truth is relative, and just simply ask them, do you believe that it's absolutely true that truth is relative? The point is, it shows you the contradiction, right? It's self-refuting. But notice also that cancel culture's definition of truth matters most, right? So I guess that's not subjective. It's subjective if your view of truth undermines their position. Their definition of truth matters most, and what they consider to be offensive or not matters most as a result. Now, once again, people who embrace or toot cancel culture, They believe, you guys, that truth is not objective. There is no objective truth. There is only subjective truth. But if you don't objectively accept cancel culture, then you will be canceled. Not just your views, but you're going to be canceled. So because Dr. Seuss does not fit within the cancel culture's not just understanding, but what they say is appropriate behavior, if it doesn't fit in that, it's canceled, okay? But that doesn't make sense. By their own admission, they should be canceling themselves because what they're doing is offensive. What they're doing is hurtful. What they're doing is harmful. What they're portraying is bully tactics. But no, because there is no absolute truth. But the problem is, you guys, if truth is nothing more than subjective feelings, and then therefore there's no absolute truth, then it doesn't matter how Dr. Seuss portrays his fictional characters. Not only that, you guys, if you think about it, even if you have a nonfiction writer who writes things that could be deemed offensive to other people, he has a right to put it out there because he's freely expressing his beliefs. We have that right. But with Dr. Seuss, he's coming up with fictional characters. They're taking fictional characters and they're putting them in reality. But again, what form of reality are we even talking about? And what are you talking about when it comes to truth? And what are you even talking about what's offensive? So again, these terms that they use, portrayal, are very ambiguous. The point is, you guys, he has a right to do that because if, according to cancel culture, if truth is subjective, then all he's doing is he's subjecting himself to free expression within his own truth. Meaning Dr. Seuss's truth is his truth. This is how he depicts people. This is how he wants to write the story. That's his truth. It's subjective, not objective. But the truth is, cancel culture recognizes Dr. Seuss's portrayal to be more than just a feeling or an object of what he believes to be right. They are not accepting that he has a right to freely express his creative side. They want to squelch that. They want to end that. They want to cancel that. They don't want to just silence a person like him and the right to freely express himself. They also want to destroy, you guys, innovation. The successes this man has had, they want to destroy. So keep that in mind that, again, cancel culture cancels itself out by its own admission. Now, here's a second thing we look at with Mr. Potato Head. When you look at the whole controversy that came out because Hasbro, the company that makes Mr. Potato and Mrs. Potato Head, they said that they were actually going to be doing a gender-neutral Spud. That's what they said. But with all the backlash that came out, they're like, oh my gosh, we messed up. And they put out a tweet and they kind of were being all humorous about it. And they're saying, hey guys, Mr. Potato Head and Mrs. Potato Head, they're still gonna remain. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to be providing a new alternative called Create Your Own Potato Head. Check this out. And you see that? So what they're doing now is they want to come out with a modern twist. There's no wrong way to tell children how to play with toys, okay? So one report was saying that this new line of Create Your Own Potato Head family is going to celebrate the many faces of families. You know, guys, again, that's trickery. You know what that means? Is redefining, reorganizing, the restructuring of family in a modern way. Why? Because truth is subjective and truth changes over time. Truth is your preference. Whatever you say it is, it's good for you. And this will allow kids to imagine and create their own potato head from two large potato bodies, one small potato baby with 42 accessories. Okay, time out here. If you are trying to go the modern way, what about polyamorous? What about polygamous? What are they going to do? Why are you limiting? What about people that are going to be offended by size? Why can't it all be three of the same size? Why has it got to be little versus large? Who's to say that's a child and who's to say that's an adult? And you guys, this is ridiculous. You know, the funny thing is when the company initially put this out, is because they were saying, catch this, they were saying they did not want to be promoting because of Mr. Potato and Mrs. Potato Head. Think about Toy Story, okay? They were saying now that Mr. Potato Head and Mrs. Potato Head are representing gender norms, right? Gender binary restrictions on children. And so they say we can't accept this anymore. Hasbro also mentioned that they didn't want to be forcing on children a certain family structure. They didn't want to limit them. They thought that in itself is offensive. Why? Because we want to be changing with the times. So noted in this modern family twist. So let me give you guys a quick little response. It's this: biology is not bigotry. Biology is not bigotry. Just because you have a Mr. Potato Head and a Mrs. Potato Head based on society, based on civilization, based on the fact that a man and a woman get married and they have sex, and the woman more than likely gets pregnant at some point, and she gives birth to a child. That's what we see in biology. There's no bigotry in that. So here's the thing, you guys, that we have to understand. People are moving away from a standard to a personal belief that will gain notoriety, catch this, in the cultural as the new ideal for humanity. So they take the cultural norms, they take the expressions that we're seeing subjectively as the new ideal for humanity. So they call it the modern family. So they have TV shows and they talk about these things, and and they like to reconstruct people's identity by extracting from the culture. But a good friend of mine, Dr. Christopher Yuan, this is what he says in his book, Holy Sexuality and the Gospel. Listen to what Chris says. He says, quote, "We live in a new world that not only embraces same-sex marriage as legitimate, but also conflates heterosexuality and homosexuality with who we are. Using a term that confuses our true identity is unwise, and embracing such a broad category that includes sinful behavior should be roundly rejected. In our culture of confusion, ambiguity is no longer an option. Instead of affirming what's generally normal, common, or usual, we must look precisely at what's biblical," end quote. That's how we respond to these things, you guys. We do not cave to people saying that biology is bigotry. We don't cave to a company like Hasbro who says we're going gender neutral because we want to change with the times, because we believe gender binary is restrictive. So let me give you an example of what this is all about. Or I should say, let me put it this way, in exposing what this is really about. This is about an attack on humanity. That's what this is about, you guys. This is an attack on humanity. This is an attack on biblical marriage. That's what this is about. And then it's about advancing transgenderism, which will, of course, will lead to polyamorism and everything else. Because if you say that man and woman, that framework is bigotry, and we've evolved to greater things nowadays, then anything goes, doesn't it? Despite being born biologically and genetically male or female, based on one's chromosomes, transgenders, you guys, give into their feelings. So this is what this is all about. This isn't about truth. I told you about cancel culture. Truth is subjective. It cancels itself out, okay, by its own admission. So the same thing applies here with transgenderism. It's all about their feelings, which in their mind overrides the natural reality of their gender. A trans can feel they are different, that they're, a different gender other than their biological gender. But that in no way validates they are genetically that other gender. But what they're saying, you guys, is they're saying no. You could determine whoever you want to be whenever you want to be that. You remember the American Psychological Association? They define transgender, catch this. They define transgender, you guys, as something by way of neutralizing someone's view that it's not contained within the way that they were assigned at birth. So notice the assignment. They had no say in it. Therefore, nature is wrong if you at some point decide to be something other than what you were at birth assigned as. But let me just say, you guys, in closing, that there are major medical and psychological dangers here. They're saying that with the restriction of having Mr. Potato and Mrs. Potato Head and Dr. Seuss stuff, that's going to traumatize children. It's going to destroy their lives. When in fact, what's actually destroying more and more children as our society continues to go down this road. And Dr. Paul McHugh, the former psychiatrist in chief for Johns Hopkins Hospital, he's also a current distinguished service professor at psychiatry, or a professor of psychiatry. He said, you guys, that transgenderism, when you go down this road, it's a mental disorder, and it does merit treatment. And that sex changes, when you mutilate your body, especially when you're younger, that it's biologically impossible for that person to promote through their sexual reassignment surgery whatever gender they're trying to be. They may think that, but their chromosomes say differently. And they're wanting to promote something that is really actually a mental disorder, which is sad, you guys, that they're advancing this stuff. I'm not saying that people don't feel that they should be something else. Yes, there is a reality there that people are confused. They're gender dysphoria. I talk about it in my book, Challenging Conversations. But what we're saying in a deeper way is that when you reject biology and how you were born by God, made in the image of the Lord, when you reject all that, you guys, no sexual reassignment surgery is going to benefit your life. It's not going to transform your life. This is way more dangerous, you guys. Transgender surgery is not the solution for people who suffer a disorder of assumption. This notion that their maleness or femaleness is different than what nature assigned to them biologically, you guys, is going to help them. When they reject that, the maleness, I reject the maleness I was born with, or I reject the femaleness that I was born with. Nature assigned this to me randomly, and I don't like it because my soul says I'm a different gender. That's not going to help these people, you guys. It's not going to help them. And that's what this is all about. So hopefully you guys can make better sense of what is happening when you see the books of Dr. Seuss being removed. Cancel culture cancels itself out. It's a contradiction. Don't fall for it. And when it comes to gender neutrality with toys, they're trying to indoctrinate your children and my children, your grandchildren, into believing that they can determine whatever gender, whatever sex they want to be. So you guys, I hope that has informed you guys, and I hope that it answers any questions you guys have. Leave some comments below. Share these videos, you guys. Subscribe to my channel if you have not done so already. Share them out to other people so we can continue to have conversations like this, you guys. I'm not trying in any way bash people. I'm calling it out as I see it, based on the evidence and based on what I believe to be God's truth. And you may disagree with that. And hey, you're entitled to that, and I'm entitled to where I stand. But in the process, I want to make sure that you give your point of view, I give my point of view, and I'm hoping that you will come to the realization that God exists, that God's truth is absolute, and there are consequences to the decisions that you and I have when it comes to that truth. So thank you guys for watching. Until next time, keep standing strong, my friends.